4/5 of their efforts are not only unnecessary but harmful. By gnawing off the grass roots in the desert, they make the desert even more barren, reducing their chances of survival. In trying to ensure their safety, they destroy their future. This is digging their own graves. If the sand rats are foolish, what about us humans? Over the years, I've interacted mostly with businessmen. Several of them are already millionaires, with enough wealth to support their families for the rest of their lives. Yet they never seem satisfied. They continue to work tirelessly, day after day, year after year. Watching their endless toil, I often think to myself, why bother? One example is a 36-year-old vice director of a provincial finance department. Dissatisfied with what he had, he took bribe after bribe. Eventually, his crimes were exposed, and he ended up in prison. At the peak of his career and life, he sacrificed everything for something unnecessary. Why bother? On some websites and forums, I've seen people tirelessly comment on every topic under the sun, from science to religion, from politics to news. They are so busy writing, consumed by their pursuits, that they seem lost in their obsession. Why bother? Sand rats feel secure only when they have stored more grass roots than they actually need. Without this, they become anxious to the point of death. Even when well-fed and with no real survival threats, they still worry if they haven't accumulated enough. Excessive accumulation depletes resources and drains life. As the global population continues to grow while resources dwindle, the desire to accumulate extra grass roots intensifies, creating a vicious cycle. Even if humanity achieves sustained peace and development, if we don't eliminate the sand rat anxiety, resources will eventually run out. When that happens, what will become of us? I recall a mass purchasing frenzy in the early 1980s. People feared that if they didn't buy something immediately, they wouldn't be able to get it later or that prices would skyrocket. This too was a form of sand rat mentality. Will it happen again? It's easy to know the way, hard to walk the way, and even harder to uphold the way. Excess is dangerous to life. Life is finite. If we focus too much on accumulation, we risk losing precious time. Worse, we may miss the opportunity to sublimate our lives. I remember a younger family member who began worrying about her 1-year-old child's future college tuition when she was just 23. She wrote to me, complaining that if she didn't find a way to earn more money soon, she wouldn't be able to pay for her child's education. I responded with a serious tone, saying, "Why are you worrying about something so far off? Live for today. Do you know what will happen tomorrow? What changes might come? Why burden yourself with tomorrow's troubles today? Tomorrow hasn't arrived yet, so why let it ruin you? The greatest Creator knows our needs, both individual and collective. Through Jesus, we have been told, do not worry about tomorrow. Seek first the kingdom of the greatest Creator and His righteousness, and all other necessities will be given to you as well. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? Buddha also teaches us to live in the present, to go with the flow, and to follow the natural course of things. Excess is dangerous to life. Don't be like the sand rat. In setting gemstones into the crown. Xiefeng. A few days ago, while organizing the shaded pathway between the swimming pool and the tennis court, my spouse discovered a carp sculpture about the size of a lamb, hidden in the grass. It had been long neglected, weathered by rain, dust, wind, and insects. Once lifelike, the carp now appeared dull, aged, and lifeless. My spouse had 2 gardeners retrieve it, clean it, repaint it, and place it at the entrance of the billiard room against a flower wall. Flanked by 2 pots of silver-edged spider plants and surrounded by asparagus ferns, the carp suddenly seemed to embody the spirit of leaping over the dragon gate, adding a vibrant touch to the courtyard. As I gazed at this new scene, my thoughts wandered, and I was filled with reflections. A simple sculpture, once cleaned up and placed in the right setting, could radiate brilliance again. How many precious things in this world are buried in the grass, their true form and beauty yet to be revealed. Especially in human society, how many talented individuals are lost in the trivialities of daily life, forever missing the chance to display their true potential. How many intellectuals, wise figures, and gifted people have been buried in the vast sea of mundanity, their wisdom and brilliance never given the chance to shine. A gemstone must be set in a crown to sparkle. Similarly, sages must be allowed to shine brightly. A sage is not only the pillar of a nation and the pride of a people but also the dutiful child of their parents. They are both law-abiding citizens and extraordinary talents. They can quietly blend into society, unnoticed, or rise above the mundane, graceful and carefree. They can soar alone in the blue sky or join a flock of cranes. Like twinkling stars in the night sky, they adorn the heavens, bringing life and beauty to the universe. Imagine a sky without stars, the night would be a lifeless void. Likewise, without sages, the world would be dull and unremarkable. Why don't sages mundane chatter, leaving them to live in obscurity? To become a sage, one must overcome these two obstacles. First, seek the guidance of saints, for saints possess the insight to recognize true talent. Without following a saint, how can one discern whether they are wise or not? If one blindly believes themselves to be the best, they risk becoming like the proverbial frog at the bottom of a well. Second, be friends but not followers. It is crucial to cultivate friendships with people from religious and political circles while avoiding membership in their organizations. Once entangled, doctrines and rules may constrain one's free will and innate nature, rendering them a servant to others, unable to live freely. Additionally, it is vital to step out of one's circles regularly. Remaining caught in a vortex leads to confusion, while stepping out offers clarity to evaluate what truly matters, its nature, value, and worthiness of one's devotion. Time and energy are the diamonds of life. In setting gemstones into the crown means dedicating one's time and energy to endeavors that best reflect the value of life. But where can one find the place or career that best reflects life's value? I carefully considered various fields, from farms to factories, military camps to mines, government offices to schools, service industries, commercial pursuits, and even matters of the heart. I pondered the work of scientists, professors, thinkers, writers, artists, philosophers, political leaders, and religious figures. Yet, something still felt missing. I also reflected on the lives of hidden hermits residing in the mountains and streams. Their existence is undeniably free, wonderful, and elegant, but there lingers a faint sense of helplessness and coldness. Of course, those exceptional individuals who bring light to humanity deserve respect. But if their own life's journey is too sorrowful and tragic, I hesitate to advocate such a path. So, where can one truly reflect the greatest value of life? The mystery is boundless. How to know whether you are fragrant or foul? Xiefeng. Yesterday, a friend brought over a box of shrimp and 2 fish, saying they were fresh from Mozambique. Within half an hour in the kitchen, a swarm of flies was drawn to the fishy smell. We had no choice but to deal with it, washing, peeling, frying, and cooking. It was only after we had eaten and thoroughly cleaned up that the flies finally began to disperse. My home, whether it's the bedroom, living room, kitchen, or courtyard, has always been praised by friends for its cleanliness and tidiness. Flies are rare in the kitchen, even if 1 or 2 occasionally wander in, they take a quick look and leave, rarely settling. So why did so many flies appear all of a sudden? Where did they come from? The more I thought about it, the more it turned my stomach. It was clear that the flies had been attracted by the shrimp and fish. The fishy smell had drawn them in, possibly from about a 10-kilometer radius. Wherever there is a foul odor, flies are sure to follow. By eating shrimp and fish with that fishy smell, I had undoubtedly absorbed some of it. Even though the food was quickly digested, the odor had unquestionably left its mark on my body. People with high blood sugar are more prone to being bitten by fleas, mosquitoes, and other insects. Flowers draw butterflies, while fishy smells lure flies. Whether butterflies are drawn to you or flies swarm around you depends entirely on whether you are fragrant or foul. The Bible forbids the eating of certain animals' meat, calling them unclean. Muslims do not eat pork or the meat of animals that died naturally, for the same reason. Buddhists completely avoid meat and pungent foods like garlic and onions, as well as meat with a strong odor. Taoists, when practicing or performing rituals, must fast and bathe beforehand. These practices are not just rituals, there is deeper wisdom behind them. In the second article of the Revelation chapter, I mentioned my grandmother. She was an illiterate woman, yet she knew countless stories about celestial beings. The most remarkable thing was that she had never eaten meat, not even eggs. She was. So, do people who eat meat tend to have more brutal maladies? Are vegetarians kinder than meat eaters? I won't delve into this question, but one thing is certain, after eating garlic or onions, our mouths will carry their smell for hours. After eating lamb, our mouths will have a strong odor. After eating fish, our mouths will carry the fishy smell. The conclusion is simple: after eating beef, our mouths will taste of beef; after eating insects, our mouths will have the taste of insects. Whatever we eat, our mouths will carry the taste of that food. The real question is, if we frequently eat animal meat, could we become animals in the next life? What we eat affects our future. The path of cultivation in this world is not something to be taken lightly. I won't discuss this further. The mysteries of this world cannot be fully explained. Let's take this further: if eating physical food impacts our future, what about consuming spiritual food? People who read ghost stories all the time will have ghosts on their minds. Those who spend their lives reading atheistic books will only think about the idea that existence determines consciousness, believing humans are the pinnacle of all life and that we can overcome fate. They do not believe in the greatest creator. People who watch pornographic films or read certain magazines will be filled with those thoughts. Those who are obsessed with money will have wealth on their minds. Those obsessed with power will always be thinking about ladders of status. Those obsessed with fame will constantly think about how to gain fame or be associated with famous people. Where eagles gather, there are bound to be animal carcasses. Where flies gather, there are certainly foul-smelling foods. Where businessmen gather, there is certainly wealth. Where the public gathers, there is certainly entertainment. Where criminals gather, there are certainly plots for crime. Where wise people gather, there are certainly saints. And where saints gather, there are certainly divine spirits and the greatest creator. Observe what surrounds you, and you'll see whether you're fragrant or foul. Fragrance draws butterflies to flowers, and peace lets thoughts flow. A clean body wards off illness, while a pure heart invites celestial beings. Whether you believe it or not, that's entirely up to you. Beware. One tendency hides another. Xiefeng. Since yin and yang first emerged, all things and phenomena in the universe have contained these two attributes, forming a duality that ensures balance, with each half complementing the other and embodying the symmetry of opposites. Life and death, for instance, are the two sides of existence. Life contains death, and death contains life. They are opposites yet interdependent. Without one, the other cannot exist. The nature of life in the Pure Land is a separate discussion. The concept of symmetry and the unity of opposites is a valuable tool for understanding phenomena and things, and it is a major avenue for humanity's path to wisdom and sainthood. If we only focus on one side of things, or only recognize one aspect, we will inevitably fall into extremism and be misled. A sheet of paper has a front and a back, or a yang side and a yin side. If we only acknowledge the front of the paper and deny the back, then our thinking has a problem. This type of thinking, which sees only one side of things, is a form of one-sided thinking, asymmetrical thinking, and disharmonious thinking. Lifechanyuan begins by introducing the concept of unconventional thinking. The goal is to inspire people to break free from one-sided perspectives. It encourages us to twist one end of our thinking 180 degrees, inverting it, to see what we hadn't seen before, turn absence into presence, good into bad, love into hate, up into down, life into death, success into failure, loss into gain, poverty into wealth, greatness into insignificance, heroes into fools, darkness into light, and so on. It is essential to emphasize that unconventional thinking involves adjusting one's perspective by 180 degrees, not fully reversing or inverting it. If everything is fully inverted, we fall into another extreme. For example, when we look at a piece of paper, we see only the front. If we flip the paper over, we still see only the other side. The key is to see both the front and the back until we can no longer distinguish which is which. This is the subtlety of unconventional thinking. For example, when we can see death within life, and life within death, where life and death are interdependent and coexistent, when we finally realize that life and death themselves do not exist, this is the true understanding of unconventional thinking. Once we reach this level of thinking, we can become a master, a saint. I won't delve into this profound and mysterious holographic thinking theory. For now, let us focus on the yin-yang attributes of things and phenomena to analyze the problems present in human and individual thinking. Everyone goes through a passionate phase. When I was in middle school, I experienced an intense love affair with a classmate. It was a period of intoxicating infatuation. My mindset at that time was undoubtedly, in heaven, let us be a pair of winged birds, on earth, let us be intertwined branches, unwavering even if the seas dry up and the rocks decay. This is one tendency, but this tendency masked another one, the parting, the bittersweetness hidden within sweetness, the decades-long yearning, and the inner sorrow. The Cultural Revolution was a time of national fervor. Those who didn't participate as Red Guards may struggle to understand the passion behind slogans like, breaking the four olds and establishing the four new, or the zeal of, singing revolutionary songs and traveling the world. During that time, people's mindsets were strikingly similar to my own during my youthful infatuation. However, beneath this lively and exuberant tendency lay another, the destruction of old superstitions and traditions without building genuine faith, which led to immense personal and national tragedies later on. Readers of The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich know that Hitler's impassioned speeches and charisma inspired the SS soldiers to fight heroically and relentlessly. At that time, Nazi soldiers were fervent and full of fighting spirit, completely convinced they were fighting for a great and sacred cause. However, one trade center and leveled it to the ground, what they felt was nothing but extreme joy. However, this sacredness conceals another tendency, beneath the brilliance lies immense evil. Some extreme religious and political organizations consist of individuals with one-sided thinking. They often believe their cause is the most righteous in the world, yet they fail to realize they are walking an extreme path, one that goes against the way. Over the past 6 months, I've been writing articles while reading widely from domestic and international Chinese websites written by somewhat well-known authors. To this day, I have yet to find a single excellent article. They all veer toward extremes, exhibit one-sided thinking, and are written by those who are self-satisfied. This is a tragedy for the Chinese people. Zhuge Liang, deeply aware of his inability to turn the tide, wrote the Ma Qian prophecies. Similarly, Lifechanyuan may also be unable to change the course of events. After 10 months of online promotion, only a handful of individuals have grasped its essence. Most remain oblivious to the hidden tendency beneath another. They are unaware of the cliff's edge, even as disaster looms. Materialism and idealism, atheism and theism, are two sides of the same coin, or yin and yang. To assert that the world is purely material, ignoring the existence and role of spirit, mind, and consciousness, will inevitably lead humanity astray. Conversely, to claim the world is purely ideal or consciousness-based, disregarding the value and role of material existence, will likewise mislead humanity. Energy for work tomorrow and make a bit more money. In conclusion, if one becomes intoxicated by one tendency, one will inevitably suffer under the opposite tendency later on. By the way, could gods and Buddhas have another side? Could the devil, Satan, have another side as well? The path of moderation for the sage. Xie Feng. A large tree that provides shade and shelter is spared from being chopped down by carpenters because it is considered useless. A hen, on the other hand, is spared from slaughter because it is useful and lays eggs. Hence, Confucius advised his disciples to position themselves between being talented and untalented. How does one find balance between talent and lack of talent? Is there a deeper wisdom hidden in this idea? When I went abroad as a translator, my superiors considered potential factors beyond just my language skills. I was proficient in accounting, clerical work, and statistics. As a level 5 fitter, a role often referred to as the jack of all trades, in mechanical fields, I was well versed in mechanical schematics and construction. If needed, I could install and repair lathes, gasoline engines, diesel engines, and drilling rigs. Moreover, I had basic knowledge of foreign trade correspondence, credit procedures, import-export processes, and customs clearance. By these standards, I was considered talented and deemed an ideal candidate for the overseas assignment. Before I left, I casually remarked to a colleague that the company could use me in multiple roles due to my varied skills. Unexpectedly, my colleague responded, "Why bother knowing so much? Once you're abroad, just stick to translating and feign ignorance in everything else. Otherwise, you'll overwork yourself and invite resentment from others." I was taken aback but soon understood. The ancients warned that, in troubled times, excessive talent is a root of misfortune, and that, mastering 1,000 techniques is less valuable than excelling in one. A person should neither be overly talented nor completely untalented but should adapt to circumstances. The balance between talent and lack thereof extends to the philosophy of moderation. The concept of moderation has faced criticism for being indecisive, opportunistic, and overly accommodating. Critics argue, 1 is 1, and 2 is 2. What is this ambiguous 1.5? Love is love, and hate is hate. What is this undefined middle ground? For a long time, I scoffed at the idea of moderation, viewing it as unworthy of a true man. However, as I gained life experience, especially through the ups and downs of human relationships, I came to realize that moderation embodies the qualities of a sage and reflects the Tao. Without broad knowledge, one cannot grasp its essence. When dealing with the poor and the rich, leaders and subordinates, intellectuals and laborers, religions and political parties, men and women, governments and underground groups, Chinese and foreigners, the elderly and the young, conservatives and innovators, suppression and resistance, violence and cooperation, I find myself standing in the middle ground, avoiding favoritism. The sun shines equally on the good and the wicked, and flowing water nourishes both the earth and humanity without discrimination. If I am to follow the Tao, I must let things take their natural course. I grew up in poverty. During my 3 years at the Zhangjiago Geological Technical School in Hebei Province, the school cafeteria cooked once in 1958 and 1960. Whether it's green onions dipped in soybean paste from the northeast, sour noodles from the northwest, sweet foods from the south, or spicy Sichuan cuisine, whether it's Chinese or Western dishes, I savor every meal as if it were a delicacy. Friends often remark, watching you eat makes the food look delicious. Because of my humble beginnings, I once believed that all poor people were inherently righteous, and all rich people were unjust. However, after climbing into the middle class and hiring nearly 100 workers poorer than me, I was disheartened by their laziness, irresponsibility, theft, lies, and ungratefulness. It became evident that some people are destined to remain poor. I once hired a lawyer to fight a year-long lawsuit against the National Trade Union, representing the poor. In the end, my eloquent speech made a difference, and I won the case. Before the law, the poor were left speechless and without a leg to stand on. Does this mean I now side with the rich? Not at all. The arrogance of the wealthy, their cutting remarks, and their ostentatious displays often leave the less fortunate feeling humiliated. I sometimes think, aside from your money, what else do you have? I've always been under others' leadership and detested the domineering and condescending manner of those in power, convinced that no official was truly good. However, when I later had the chance to lead others myself, I came to realize that being in a leadership position is no easy task either. The masses have their reasons, and those in leadership have their challenges. An irreconcilable dilemma exists between the two. I was once a member of the working class and deeply envied intellectuals. I thought they understood many principles, could distinguish truth from falsehood, and upheld justice, serving as the backbone of enterprises and the nation. Later, after graduating from the Education Institute and becoming a middle school teacher, I became an intellectual myself. However, I quickly discovered that intellectuals can be narrow-minded, self-serving, and overly concerned with trivial matters. On the surface, they may appear courteous and witty, but deep down, they are often masters of internal conflict. Currently, I have written nearly 1 million words in articles and can now be considered a genuine intellectual. My 10 months of experience online have profoundly revealed to me that intellectuals are not necessarily admirable. Famous intellectuals often disregard those without status, speaking in grandiose and polished rhetoric while their true intentions and actions often tell a different story. As for the majority of ordinary intellectuals, deep down, their attitude seems to be, "I know you're capable, but I'll do everything I can to prevent your success." Jealousy may well be the innate nature of intellectuals. They envy not only the talents of their colleagues, classmates, and friends but also those of people everywhere, whether in the present or throughout history. Intellectuals tend to be more adept at hindering progress than fostering it. If they do offer praise or admiration for someone, it is usually because they stand to gain something from it, or the person being praised is a historical figure, deceased, or a foreigner. Otherwise, such praise rarely comes from a place of genuine sincerity. I was once a devout communist, idolizing Marx and Lenin and firmly believing that religion is the opium of the people. However, after studying the Bible, the Quran, Buddhist scriptures, and the Tao Te Ching, I came to realize how shallow and uninformed Marx and Lenin truly were. Later, I participated in religious activities and experienced various practices and rituals. Coupled with observing the fanaticism and zealotry of certain religious organizations and individuals, I came to understand that religion not only anesthetizes people's spirits but also constrains their souls and instills a sense of terror in their minds. I am a chauvinist, believing that men should have the final say in family matters and that women should stay out of politics. In my view, men should naturally be strong and brave, while women should be gentle and virtuous. This balance of strength and softness is the way of nature. However, I later realized that some men do not fit this mold, they are neither strong nor brave but instead gentle, even competing with women for the role of gentleness. This inevitably causes distress for women. When faced with such men, women have no choice but to become strong and assertive, embracing a form of female chauvinism. I am also a statist, firmly believing that everyone must operate within the framework of the Constitution and laws. Only in this way can society maintain order and harmony, enabling people to fully utilize their talents and resources. If societal problems arise, the first course of action should be to amend the Constitution and laws. Once established, these laws must be strictly adhered to by everyone, from top to bottom. No one should act outside the boundaries of the Constitution and laws, and any violation should be treated as a crime. The problem is that sometimes, in certain places, some people go beyond the bounds of the law. They bully others without facing legal restraint or punishment. What should I do then? I can't always endure such situations. I must take action. I firmly believe that being pitied or sympathized with is a disgrace for a man. When left with no other choice, I would have to go rogue. When cries for help go unanswered, I have no choice but to join or form a criminal group. Regardless of the consequences, I will fight back. If you won't let me live, why should I let you live comfortably? Somebody once said something absurd: those who are not of our kind must have different hearts. After interacting with black and white people for over 10 years, I came to realize that all human hearts are made of flesh. Many black and white people have been exceptionally friendly to me, more sincere and easier to get along with than some of my own compatriots. There is no place in the world without fragrant grass. Wherever there is human warmth, one can find a home. A true man's ambitions should reach all corners of the world. Chinese, foreigners, black, white, yellow, aren't we all human beings? The issue between the elderly and the young boils down to one unchanging principle: the young must respect the elderly, and the elderly must care for the young. Beyond this, judgments cannot be based on age alone. The young should not read Water Margin, and the old should not read Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which proves that both young and old have their own strengths and weaknesses. Determining who is right or wrong must be done on a case-by-case basis. In summary, nothing is conclusive, and human affairs are never set in stone. Our minds must remain in a state of emptiness, ignorance, humility, and moderation, ready to act according to circumstances and adapt to the flow of life. When the weather is fair, the people harmonious, and all is well, the saint should remain dormant, silent for 1,000 years, letting everything take its natural course. But when chaos abounds and lives are plunged into suffering, the saint must act swiftly and decisively, guiding the world back to order. To become a sage, one must practice moderation. Any bias will turn one into a scoundrel. The Saint. Xiefeng. Zhuangzi said, "Take heaven as the foundation, virtue as the root, the way as the door, and the signs of change as the teachings. This is the saint." In the intermediate treasury of classical advice in Lifechanyuan, Part 1, the concept of the saint is described as follows. When the world aligns with the Tao, the saint fulfills their mission. When the world is in disorder, the saint perseveres and emerges. The saint practices non-action and teaches with wise words. The saint understands that the way of nature cannot be violated and thus adheres to the path of profound stillness. The saint follows heavenly laws, returns to the truth, and remains unbound by worldly conventions. The saint knows without taking action, recognizes without being seen, and accomplishes without striving. The saint does not seek greatness, yet achieves greatness. The saint desires what others do not desire, places no value on rare treasures, learns what others do not learn, corrects the mistakes of the masses, and supports the natural order of all things without imposing force. The saint avoids excess, extravagance, and arrogance. The saint embraces unity as a model for the world. The saint knows themselves without seeking attention, loves themselves without seeking admiration. The saint does not hoard. The more they give to others, the more they have. The saint's way is to act without contention, to use without greed. The saint is nameless, the divine person claims no credit, and the perfected person transcends the self. The saint's way requires minimal effort yet achieves significant results. The saint is not omnipotent, no thing has a perfect purpose, and neither heaven nor earth achieves complete perfection. The saint has no divided heart, and heaven follows a single way. The saint does not focus on life or death but seeks to understand their underlying reasons. The saint relies on the way for transformation, not on intelligence or cunning. Destiny is self-created, and the saint understands its principles. The saint is like a spiritual herb bestowed by heaven upon the earth, a miraculous elixir capable of curing all ailments. The saint absorbs the essence of the sun and moon, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and transforms into a celestial being or divine figure. The saint embodies the spirit of the greatest creator, serving as the creator's representative and messenger on earth and as the pinnacle of humanity. The wisdom of the saint is profound and unfathomable. Jesus, Sakyamuni, and Laozi are the saints among sages. Great philosophers, scientists, thinkers, and politicians also exhibit the qualities of the saint. The wisdom of the saint does not primarily stem from knowledge or education but from spiritual resonance with the way. The saint possesses keen spiritual awareness. The saint transcends life and death, personal biases, fixed conclusions, hatred, and attachments. They flow with change and adhere to the principles of yin and yang. Zhuge Liang resolutely said, "To save the suffering and the troubled is the work of the saint." In times of turmoil in human society, it is only the saint who can guide humanity out of confusion and hardship. Great saints will inevitably emerge in human society, for only through the emergence of great saints can the worthy not be left behind in the wild, and the world become one family. May our Lifechanyuan Academy members first become noble people, then sages, and ultimately saints. Let us open our eyes wide and seek the saint. Sages, Part 1. Xiefeng. In the classification of people, I divided humanity into 5 categories: ignorant people, worldly people, mortals, sages, and celestials. This classification is based on the varying degrees to which instinct, desire, emotion, reason, and spirituality dominate human nature. For instance, those driven by instinct are ignorant people, those driven by desire are worldly people, those driven by emotion are mortals, those driven by reason are sages, and those driven by spirituality are celestials. This is a broad and absolute categorization. Celestials can be further classified into ghost celestials, human celestials, land celestials, deity celestials, and super celestials. In Revelation chapter, Article 68, saints are discussed, and they belong to the celestial category. Based on the depth of their alignment with the Tao, celestials can be subdivided into perfected beings, true beings, celestial beings, divine beings, and heavenly beings. If categorized by levels, humanity can be divided into 3 tiers. Lower level, ignorant people, worldly people, and mortals; middle level, sages; upper level, saints, including ultimate beings, true beings, celestial beings, divine beings, and heavenly beings. Among these, celestials only include human celestials and land celestials. Deity celestials and super celestials no longer belong to the human realm, while ghost celestials are also outside humanity. The purpose of classifying people is not to toy with concepts but to help us determine our position among humanity and identify the direction and goal of our progress. Without classification, it becomes difficult to establish a reference point or coordinate system for our lives. Without it, life becomes a tangled mess, and we may go through life without ever understanding what it is truly about. We know that stones, for example, can be categorized into diamonds, rubies, sapphires, cat's eyes, topazes, spinels, aquamarines, zircons, emeralds, tourmalines, garnets, jadites, opals, moonstones, sunstones, turquoise, malachites, agates, pebbles, bluestones, flint, and so on. Each type of stone has its own unique characteristics. Similarly, people can be categorized into heavenly beings, divine beings, celestials, true beings, perfected beings, saints, mortals, worldly people, and ignorant people, based on their unique traits. A sage is someone who has transcended the constraints of instinct, desire, and emotion to enter a life of reason, but they still fall short of a life of spirituality. Sages remain unclear about whether existence precedes consciousness or vice versa. They readily accept scientific knowledge, logical reasoning, empirically proven facts, and the wisdom distilled from humanity's millennia of experience. However, when it comes to transcending conventional thinking, sages are often at a loss, bewildered, and even resistant. It is akin to a scale capable of measuring up to 100 kilograms. It works seamlessly within this range but becomes useless when the weight exceeds its capacity. Recently, a friend visited my home to swim but almost drowned. He could only swim 5 meters, and beyond that, he started floundering in place. Fortunately, someone was there to rescue him, otherwise, the consequences could have been dire. The development of Lifechanyuan vividly illustrates this phenomenon. Many people are initially enthusiastic and actively participate, but as the path deepens, they find it difficult to keep up. They start to feel that certain aspects are unsuitable or problematic, attempting to explain things or draw boundaries based on their rational thinking as sages. They try to impose limits on the boundless mysteries of the universe using simple formulas or laws, which is both distressing and regrettable. Everything has limits. Pots, pans, trucks, and computers have their capacities, even springs have an elastic limit. The Earth's mass and speed must remain within limits to maintain balance and order. The problem is, human thought is limitless. Left to themselves, people may never break free from rigid thinking. But with guidance, they can transcend conventional thinking and enter a vast new dimension. Unfortunately, few people are humble enough to accept such guidance, while many remain stubbornly attached to their views. There are 80 billion celestial islands in the celestial islands continent waiting for people to inhabit, yet too few are able to meet the standards required. Newton discovered three threshold cosmic velocities: 7.9 km per second, 11.2 km per second, and 16.7 km per second. If we assume that 7.9 km per second is the universal principle, we will never escape Earth's gravitational pull. If we assume that 11.2 km per second is the universal principle, we will never break free from the solar system's control. If we assume that Einstein's principle of the speed of light applies to all matter, including non-material, then we are doomed to be forever bound to Earth, trapped in a cycle of conflict over food, clothing, shelter, and transportation. Sages are only one step away from truth. They are like someone hanging onto a withered vine over a cliff, waiting for rescue. As Buddha said, "Let go, and they will step into the ranks of saints." But if they refuse to let go, they will perish along with the vine. If sages do not abandon their entire way of thinking and empty their minds, they will remain sages forever. So, what exactly is the state of sages? See Revelation chapter, Article 70. Sages, Part 2. Xiefeng. Sages are the backbone of human civilization and society. They are the guardians of morality, the maintainers of harmony and order, the defenders of truth, and the disseminators of saintly wisdom. Sages are precious gifts bestowed upon humanity by nature, like lingzhi mushrooms, peonies, gemstones, and sparks of fire. The origins of sages are twofold. First, they descend from the thousand-year world. Second, they emerge through the practice and refinement of noble individuals. In other words, some sages are born with these qualities, while others are cultivated through the self-discipline and refinement of noble individuals following the teachings of saints. Sages possess the following qualities. Rationality. They think critically and do not blindly follow others. They maintain moderation in all things, avoiding extremes. They reason through matters rather than engaging in irrational disputes. They are loyal and trustworthy, never fickle or inconsistent. Humility. Recognizing their own insignificance and limitations, they revere heaven and respect the divine. Acknowledging their own ignorance, they seek the guidance of saints. Understanding their weakness, they rely on the collective strength of the masses. Knowing their abilities are limited, they never mock ordinary people. Simplicity. Those who crave dominance and seek to make waves are not sages. Those who desire sudden wealth are not sages. Those who seek overnight fame are not sages. Those who oppose the government are not sages. Those who deliberately place themselves at the center of controversies are not sages. Those who denounce their ancestors or curse their heritage are not sages. Those who incite chaos are not sages. Those who are filled with hatred and seek revenge are not sages. Harmony. Being with sages makes life feel beautiful and hopeful. Being with sages brings a sense of security and inner peace. Being with sages fosters boundless joy, free from worries. Being with sages sharpens one's thinking, making challenges easier to overcome. Those who try to please everyone and be all things to all people are not sages. Those who seek novelty and luxury, and indulge in extravagance, are not sages. Those who frequently visit lavish mansions or entertainment districts are not sages. Those who flaunt their wealth and provoke envy are not sages. Those who decorate their homes like palaces or brothels are not sages. Those who complicate simple matters unnecessarily are not sages. Diligence. Sages are diligent because every grain of rice represents hard-earned labor. Sages are diligent because one must give before one can receive. Sages are diligent because, just as the sun and moon never cease their motion, life must remain in constant activity. Sages are diligent because heaven helps those who help themselves, while laziness leads to greed, ignorance, selfishness, and poverty. Resilience. Sages are like grass that survives after being trampled, grazed upon, or swept by floods. They persist as long as there is the slightest chance of life. Sages are like Robinson Crusoe stranded on a deserted island. They hold on to hope and never despair. Sages are like camels trudging through a barren desert. They press on as long as they have even a shred of energy left. Sages are like wild animals, injured and abandoned without the care of their kind. So long as they have breath, they rise again. I sing praises to sages, admire sages, yearn for sages, and seek out sages. Zhuge Liang once prophesied, sages will not remain in the wilderness, the world will unite as one family. Lifechanyuan must gather sages who are now scattered across the wilderness, remote villages, humble streets, and modest dwellings, bringing them together as one. Through the collective power of sages, humanity will be led to depart from Egypt and journey toward the land, flowing with milk and honey. Moreover, I will treat sages as dazzling pearls, embedding them atop Lifechanyuan's countless towering peaks, allowing them to shine eternally. I will regard sages as rare, fragrant celestial herbs, planting them amidst the picturesque mountains and rivers, in the fertile fields of the 1,000-year world, 10,000-year world, and the Elysium world, enabling them to enjoy the eternal joy of life. I wish for the members of Lifechanyuan to sprint forward, swiftly attaining the qualities of sages. Without pause or hesitation, they shall continue their journey toward the highest realm of life, sainthood, and ultimately reach the celestial islands continent. Amen. Run bare-bottomed when your life is on the line. Xiefeng. I usually start work at 8:30 a.m. However, 2 days ago, on January 6, 2005, I had an appointment with a friend who asked for my help with a small task at the bank. We agreed to meet at 8 a.m. at the bank's entrance. At 7:40 a.m., my friend called to remind me not to forget the appointment. He asked, "Are you still in bed?" Still groggy, I replied, "Yes." I arrived at the bank at exactly 8 a.m., but my friend didn't turn up until 8:15. I asked why he was late, and he explained that he hadn't expected me to be on time. Based on his reasoning, since I got out of bed at 7:40, I'd still need time to wash, eat, get ready, and account for at least 10 minutes of travel time. In his estimation, it was impossible for me to make it by 8 o'clock. My friend, a meticulous and methodical company manager, based his estimate on conventional reasoning, which seemed perfectly logical. The problem is that conventional thinking can't account for unconventional actions. For instance, when pressed for time, I might skip breakfast. In extreme situations, I might forego washing up. And if it were a matter of life and death, I wouldn't hesitate to bolt out the door, stark naked if necessary. Recently, while watching CNN, I saw footage of people frantically running during the Indian Ocean tsunami. Why were they running like mad? Because their lives were at stake. In such critical moments, there's no room for hesitation. Every second counts, and even if you're stark naked, you must run. A moment's delay to tidy up, shine your shoes, or open a box to grab some cash could mean the difference between life and death. Sometimes, survival hinges on how effectively you use a single minute. Now, imagine if someone knew about the tsunami 9 hours in advance and tried to warn the people on the shore, run quickly. A tsunami is coming. Would they believe it? Would they heed the warning? 98% of them probably wouldn't. Some might think, this guy must be crazy. Others might dismiss him as a jealous troublemaker, envious of their seaside enjoyment. Hotel owners might accuse him of stirring up trouble to hurt their business. Or maybe someone would call 110, China's emergency number, and say, there's someone here spreading panic, creating chaos, and disrupting order. Please send someone to take him away. Now, let's suppose someone knew a tsunami was coming half an hour in advance and shouted desperately, run. A tsunami is coming. Think about it, how would people react? Or suppose the rumble of the approaching wave could faintly be heard, or its towering form just barely seen. How many people would drop everything and run, bare-bottomed, without looking back? Now let's take it further. Suppose a cataclysmic tsunami, one not seen in 5,000 years, were to strike the Earth around 2013. If someone, frantic with urgency, shouted to the masses, "The tsunami is coming. Run," would they believe it? Would they act? Would they run bare-bottomed? Could they abandon their gold and silver treasures? Could they walk away from their cozy homes, their hard-earned status, and their power? Could they part with their spouses, concubines, and loved ones? Here's a brief anecdote. As I was writing this, a friend came to visit. I discussed the topic with him, asking, "What would you do if a great tsunami were to hit around 2013? He replied without hesitation, "I'd take it one day at a time. If I die, I won't die alone. So many people will die, what's there to fear? Besides, if science can't predict it, who can? Even if I wanted to escape, where would I go?" I said, "Think of it as a game of hide-and-seek. Suppose someone had the foresight to know where safety lies. Would you listen to them?" Noah prepared for 40 years before the flood. The moment the ark's door closed, torrential rains poured down. Why not learn from Noah? He replied, "Building an ark requires money. Without money, how can you build one?" I countered, "Let's assume you don't need money to join the ark, and it's already nearly complete. All you need is to prepare yourself mentally and spiritually to enter. Would you step aboard?" He brushed it off as pure nonsense and a figment of imagination. "I believe in reality, not illusions," he said. I said, "Fair enough. Hold on to your reality then. Like playing music to a cow." Dear readers, what is reality? Is yesterday reality? Is tomorrow reality? I believe reality is this: when your life is on the line, don't hesitate, just run, even bare-bottomed. Do what should be done, avoid what shouldn't. Xiefeng. Every time I step into the shower, I hear the sound of mice scurrying across the ceiling. On several occasions, I've even heard the squeaking of baby mice, confirming that a pair of mice have settled down to raise a large family, enjoying their domestic bliss. Ideally, I should find a way to drive them out, but considering that their mischief is limited to stealing dog food and that they haven't caused other troubles, I've taken no action so far and let them roam freely. However, I have issued a warning. You must know what to do and what not to do. Nature has granted you survival skills and the means to live. You have the right to exist, and I cannot deprive you of that. But there is a principle: you can build a nest on my ceiling, raise your young, and even make some noise at times. I won't hold you accountable for that. But if you overbreed, dig holes everywhere, and damage my home, I will take measures. Either I'll get a cat or lay poison everywhere. The choice is yours. The mice may have sensed this warning, or perhaps they are completely oblivious to my intentions. Regardless, if they act within bounds, they can survive safely, but the moment they grow reckless, disaster will befall them. If we compare my attitude toward the mice to that of the greatest creator's attitude toward humanity, this analogy could serve as a cautionary tale. Humanity must remain vigilant, knowing what should and should not be done. If we act recklessly and indulge our desires, who knows when a cat or poisons might suddenly appear? Could the Indian Ocean tsunami have been such a cat? Humanity as a whole must act with restraint, and so must each individual. Yuan Shikai, who disregarded moral bounds, was reviled for generations, while George Washington, who exercised restraint, was celebrated for centuries. Good fortune should not be enjoyed alone, power should not be monopolized, benefits should not be hoarded, and the world should not be ruled by one person alone. Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of a unified China, achieved greatness but failed to exercise restraint. His infamous burning of books and burying of scholars alive earned him the scorn of intellectuals for millennia. Heaven has its own scales of justice. No matter how ignorant or unaware a person may be, their heart holds its own measure. One may enjoy temporary success, but it is impossible to fool people forever. We may deceive others in some matters but not in all. Whether president or shepherd, everyone must know what to do and what not to do. We may escape human punishment, but we cannot escape the laws of the Tao. Those with power, those who have opportunities to benefit themselves, those basking in glory and praise, and those who secretly mock others for their ignorance must all learn to stop at the right point and exercise restraint. As members of Lifechanyuan, we especially must know what to do and what not to do. We must act as if walking a tightrope or treading on thin ice. For things we don't understand, we should stay silent, not out of indifference, but out of caution. It's okay if we don't produce masterpieces, as long as we don't create garbage. It's okay if we can't maintain peace and harmony, as long as we don't cause chaos. It's okay if we can't help others, as long as we don't harm them. Lifechanyuan itself must also have its boundaries. As humanity's spiritual and emotional sanctuary, it must focus on matters of the spirit and soul. In areas like politics, administration, markets, and systems, we should remain uninvolved. In these fields, we are amateurs, ignorant and unqualified. Even if we have some knowledge, we cannot monopolize every good cause. We must leave vast spaces for others to thrive and shine. All things in the world must operate within limits. The Earth can only orbit obediently within the range of gravitational forces. Should it deviate from its path, it would cease to exist. Be it tigers and leopards, gazelles and elephants, mice and cockroaches, or sparrows and insects, all can only operate within certain boundaries. Exceed those boundaries, and disaster is inevitable. Humans cannot conquer heaven, they can only align with it. Humans cannot reject heaven, they can only follow it. Though I know little of politics, the teachings of saints have revealed that a great leader governs by adapting to circumstances and going with the flow. The great controlled floods not by blocking them but by channeling the water. A reservoir must have a spillway to ensure the long-term safety of its dam. Confucius said, "At 50, I understood the will of heaven." I am not far from 50, yet I have not yet grasped the will of heaven. What I do understand, however, is that to become a sage, one must know what to do and what not to do. Material thinking. Xiefeng. Preface. Life is a non-material structure imbued with spirituality. This is the essential characteristic that distinguishes life from non-life. When we examine the myriad life forms in the vast universe, we discover that the fundamental difference between various life forms lies in their genetic structures. The type of genetic structure determines the form of life. All humans, in terms of physical form, belong to the same species and share no significant differences. However, when we delve into the realm of thought, we uncover stark distinctions among individuals. Humans can be categorized into heavenly beings, divine beings, celestial beings, true beings, perfected beings, sages, mortals, worldly people, and ignorant people. Classifying humans based solely on conceptual categories holds little significance. However, when we focus on the evolution of life, we uncover a profound mystery, the essence of reincarnation and transformation. Understanding this essence allows one's life to enter the Tao. Once on the Tao, we can rise above the dense fog of confusion and progress toward higher dimensions of life, rather than remaining stagnant or regressing to lower realms. This is the purpose of distinguishing among different categories of people. By classifying individuals into heavenly beings, divine beings, celestial beings, true beings, ultimate beings, sages, mortals, worldly people, and ignorant people, we can clearly observe the trajectory of life's evolution and the direction for self-improvement and cultivation. For instance, if you are a mortal, your life's goal should at least be to aspire to become a sage rather than conforming to worldly people. Similarly, if you are a sage, you should aim to progress toward becoming a saint, a divine, celestial, true, or perfected being, rather than sliding backward. So, what is the fundamental difference among these different categories of people? The answer lies in their thinking. The way one thinks determines one's form of existence. Taiji Celestial. How many types of thinking exist among humans? The variations are countless, diverse, and intricate. However, when categorized systematically, human thinking can be grouped into 8 major types. Material thinking. Image thinking. Associative thinking. Illusory thinking. Visualized thinking. Taiji thinking. Formless thinking. Holographic thinking. To guide those who revere the greatest creator, respect gods and Buddhas, honor life, and revere nature into heaven, the 1,000-year world, the 10,000-year world, and the Elysium world, I have provided a concise introduction to these 8 types of thinking in articles 73 to 80 of the Revelation chapter. These explanations serve to dispel confusion and help individuals attain enlightenment swiftly. Material thinking. Material thinking is a mode of reasoning based on the superficial phenomena of nature and human society. It evaluates life's value and determines actions without considering the deeper causal relationships behind appearances. This mode of thinking disregards the underlying reasons for observable phenomena. As such, it is also known as superficial thinking, intuitive thinking, linear thinking, one-dimensional thinking, instinctual thinking, or 1 + 1 = 2 thinking. This type of thinking is characteristic of animals and ignorant people, and it is also the predominant mode of thinking among most worldly people. Let us first examine some specific manifestations of material thinking before analyzing it further. Manifestation 1: Pessimism, disappointment, anxiety, complaining, jealousy. People with material thinking are preoccupied with eating, drinking, playing, entertainment, building homes, seeking fame, accumulating wealth, and gaining power, constantly striving to outdo others. However, these desires are insatiable, leading to perpetual pessimism, disappointment, anxiety, complaining, and jealousy. Their entire lives are spent in a dazed struggle, much like dumplings boiling in a pot, constantly tumbling but never contemplating the deeper meaning behind the surface phenomena. Manifestation 2: Stealing, cheating, robbing, defrauding, swindling, deceiving, abducting, bullying, oppressing, raping, killing. To satisfy their base physiological desires without being willing to earn through legitimate labor, or due to the unfair distribution mechanisms in society, such individuals resort to stealing, cheating, robbing, defrauding, swindling, deceiving, abducting, bullying, oppressing, raping, and killing. This reflects the law of the jungle in the animal world. They seldom, if ever, consider the catastrophic consequences of their actions on their own future lives. Manifestation 3: Inciting, instigating, attacking, plundering, occupying, rioting, waging war. When their desires become too overwhelming, and deception, theft, and coercion seem inadequate or too minor in scale, what do? How do they seize what belongs to others? They manipulate others through false morality, false justice, and false democracy to incite and instigate unrest. They resort to violence, taking advantage of chaos to further their own interests. Some even mobilize entire nations to expand outward, seizing others' lands and plundering their wealth, regardless of the suffering inflicted on others. The extreme manifestations of material thinking are primarily reflected in these 3 aspects. Why do such individuals act this way? In their previous lives, they had just transitioned from the animal world and had not received timely civilizing education. Instinctual animal behaviors remain deeply embedded in their genes, making such actions seem natural to them. Having observed the animal kingdom and understood human history, they internalize the principles of evolution, leading them to conclude that humans are meant to exploit one another, every man for himself, victory belongs to the strong, and the survival of the fittest. They believe life is about amassing wealth and power, while everything else is secondary. Physically strong but intellectually simple, they perceive only the tangible material world. Concepts like the greatest creator, gods, Buddhas, and karmic retribution seem to them like myths and superstitions. They are staunch atheists, rigid materialists, and unwavering utilitarians. The material world, as it appears, is their sole reality. Their way of thinking shapes their psychological activities and behavioral patterns, directly determining their worldview and approach to life. Despite their simplicity, their destructiveness to human society is immense. They pose a great threat to civilized societies and are the primary cause of human suffering. The only solution is education. Humanity's foremost task should be to educate those with material thinking. Without addressing this issue, humanity will never experience true peace and happiness and will always face the potential risk of self-destruction. As for these individuals themselves, they will never find true happiness. More importantly, their lives cannot ascend, they can only descend to lower realms and endure the consequences of their own actions. It must be said that people with material thinking are the most pitiable and deserving of sympathy, yet they are also the most stubborn and dangerous. It is crucial to recognize that such individuals are not only found among the uneducated or the working class but also among scholars, professors, scientists, political leaders, and the wealthy. The real challenge lies in educating them. In conclusion, material thinking is the simplest and most practical form of thinking, but it is also the lowest and most primitive form of human thinking. Image thinking. Xiefeng. Image thinking refers to the process of transforming the appearance of the material world, or a tangible entity, into a pattern, symbol, melody, language, gesture, expression, or sound. For example, activities such as sketching, painting, photography, copying, rubbing, and sculpture express physical objects through patterns. These are all forms of image thinking. Similarly, cartography, whether it be maps, transistor circuit diagrams, architectural blueprints, process flowcharts, mechanical construction diagrams, assembly schematics, meridian charts, simplified musical notation, or staff notation, transforms physical entities into symbols, which is also an application of image thinking. Musical pieces such as A Moonlit Night on the Spring River, The Moon Reflected in Urquin, and the violin concerto Butterfly Lovers express the stories of nature and human experiences through melodies rich in emotional highs and lows, achieving a profound spiritual impact. This, too, belongs to image thinking. The development and evolution of the Chinese language is a result of image thinking. Our writing system began with pictographs, where visual symbols represented physical objects. Even today, characters like moon, mountain, stone, field, and water still retain traces of their original pictorial forms. When reading classic literary works such as Romance of the Three Kingdoms, Water Margin, Journey to the West, A Dream of Red Mansions, and Investiture of the Gods, we can vividly see the characters come to life, as if they are standing before us. This is a result of the author's image thinking, through which real people are transformed into literary figures. The 5 Animal Frolics exercise, created by the renowned physician Hua Tuo to enhance physical health, elevates the imitation of animal movements into a series of postures and gestures, another manifestation of image thinking. Theatrical performances, whether by Shakespeare or Lao Shi, rely on actors whose expressions and costumes are not genuine reflections of their personal emotions. Instead, the actors serve as vessels for their characters, vividly expressing their joy, anger, love, sorrow, and longing. This is yet another form of image thinking. Similarly, imitating dragon roars, tiger growls, frog croaks, dog barks, human shouts, horse neighs, insect chirps, and wolf howls also falls under image thinking. Image thinking is a cognitive process in which physical entities are represented by images to achieve a corresponding effect. For example, sending a photograph to a distant loved one provides comfort, even though the sender is not physically present. The landscapes and figures on a television screen are mere projections, yet their impact is nearly indistinguishable from that of real images. When watching television, we experience emotions, excitement, joy, anger, sorrow, anxiety, laughter, crying, shouting, because of how the images unfold before us. This is the effect of image thinking. Materialistic thinking, on the other hand, is direct. It is simply, I have no choice but to do this. Their daily actions are mechanical, passive, and obligatory, often accompanied by self-loathing, aversion, or a sense of resignation. They remain confined within a limited space or domain, repeating the same tasks daily, even for a lifetime, much like their ancestors, without creativity, independence, or autonomy. However, those who engage in image thinking are different. They use their minds actively. Their thought process is not "I have no choice but to do this," but rather "I choose to do this." They transcend the physical world and enter the realm of spirit, breaking free from the constraints of time and space. They transform fleeting moments, phenomena, or events into something relatively eternal, thus leading a freer existence than those governed solely by materialistic thinking. It can be said that artistic creation is a process of image thinking. Painting, composing music, cartography, photography, acting, and literary writing all fall within its scope. Image elements transcend reality, the mundane, time and space, and even personal worries. They have a profound effect on the human spirit, elevating one's state of mind. For instance, young fans who decorate their rooms with large posters of their idols experience a form of emotional and spiritual regulation. Similarly, when we internalize Lifechanyuan as our spiritual and emotional home, we can free ourselves from the suffering and burdens caused by worldly attachments, thus achieving a higher level of spiritual refinement. This is the transformative effect of elevating one's mode of thinking. It directly influences our lives and our very existence. Associative thinking. Xiefeng. Associative thinking refers to the mental process of grasping a natural phenomenon and then using it as a springboard to make further connections, drawing parallels, and linking together other related factors. A classic example of associative thinking is Newton, Apple, universal gravitation. Newton observed the common natural phenomenon of an apple falling to the ground, which led him to the concept of gravity. He then extended this concept to include mass, speed, space, and other factors, ultimately deriving the three laws of motion. This is associative thinking. For example, the whirlpool phenomenon that often occurs when draining water from a bathtub can lead one to think of the movement direction of Earth's magnetic field lines. The spiral ascent of a bean vine can remind one of the movement of celestial bodies. The natural observation of wood floating and iron sinking on water can be connected to the concept of buoyancy, which then leads to the shipbuilding industry. Observing the discontinuity of an object's motion might lead to associations with quantum mechanics. The relationship between motion, mass, and gravity can be linked to spacetime curvature. The role of consciousness can lead one to think of the holographic nature of the universe, and so on. All of these examples are manifestations of associative thinking. A skilled detective can infer a suspect's character traits, motivations, and whereabouts from a few clues. A qualified forensic expert can deduce a criminal's physical features, appearance, and even their clothing style from the victim's wounds and facial expressions. A seasoned traditional Chinese medicine doctor can link a patient's complexion to internal organ health. A master of face reading, Mian Xiang, can infer a person's past actions and future fortunes from their facial features. A feng shui master can assess a person's living environment based on their handwriting and habitual movements. A skilled politician can sense the rise and fall of dynasties or the coming of a new era based on public psychological behavior. An economist might predict fluctuations in the stock market or the economic trajectory of a country based on a single event. A sociologist could infer the loss of a nation's values and morals from the prevalence of issues like prostitution, drug use, and organized crime. Even a fashion designer can predict future trends in clothing based on street fashion and the pace of people's movements. Associative thinking is primary, inventive, pioneering, and unique. It is a form of divergent thinking. Many people may appear to engage in associative thinking, but in reality, they are merely applying knowledge or accumulated experience from others. For example, many farmers can predict the cycle of farming based on the changing seasons, spring sowing, summer growing, autumn harvesting, winter storing, but this is not the result of their associative thinking. Instead, it is a reflection of accumulated experience in their awareness. Many people can connect the pain of arthritis to changes in the weather, but this, too, is the result of knowledge and experience, not associative thinking. Similarly, many businesspeople can predict which goods to buy and sell based on regional, temporal, and seasonal differences, but this is again the result of experience, except in rare cases. In professions like engineering, technical work, and scholarly research, it might seem like associative thinking is at play, but in reality, they are simply applying the knowledge learned in school or accumulated through experience. For example, Newton's association of a falling apple with the law of universal gravitation is the result of associative thinking. However, if a college student claims that he can associate a falling apple with the law of universal gravitation, he is merely recounting the knowledge he has learned rather than demonstrating his own associative thinking, unless he had never heard of Newton or the concept of gravity before. Strictly speaking, only thought processes that lead to new discoveries, inventions, creations, or theories qualify as associative thinking. From this perspective, those who truly possess associative thinking abilities include scientists, inventors, forensic experts, traditional Chinese medicine practitioners, face readers, feng shui masters, outstanding politicians, and military strategists. Engineers and technicians who develop new products can also be loosely included in this category. The slow but steady progress of human civilization is primarily driven by individuals with associative thinking abilities. Without them, modern civilization as we know it would not exist. Material thinking is a form of fixed thinking, whereas associative thinking is divergent thinking. It breaks through the limitations of material thinking, surpasses the imitation and replication of image thinking, and directly extends its reach into the unknown. This leads to new discoveries, inventions, and paths forward. However, associative thinking is still far from unlocking the ultimate mysteries of the universe. I have realized this from studying the thinking of great scientists such as Newton, Einstein, Planck, and Hawking, as well as from observing their attempts to establish a unified field theory of the universe. For humanity as a whole, I hope that more people will develop associative thinking abilities. To illustrate the difference, to transport 6 tons of cargo from point A to point B, which is 800 kilometers away, a person with associative thinking will simply use a heavy-duty truck and complete the task alone in one day. In contrast, someone relying solely on material thinking, even if they can carry 50 kilograms and walk 100 kilometers per day, would require 120 people and 8 days to accomplish the same task, a waste of effort with inferior results. Meanwhile, someone limited to image thinking would not even be able to conceive of a solution. From an artistic perspective, image thinkers are more remarkable than material thinkers, but from a practical perspective, when hungry, a real bun will satisfy hunger, while a picture of a bun, no matter how lifelike, cannot solve the problem. For Lifechanyuan members, I hope that your thinking will not be confined to associative thinking alone, as it is still a lower-level form of thinking. It is like the challenge of transmitting information across the Atlantic. A material thinker would build a ship to transport messages. An image thinker would lay underwater cables. An associative thinker would use radio waves. And we would. Illusory thinking. Xiefeng. Imagine yourself in the middle of a vast desert. The sky is a dull gray, and there are no reference points in sight, no compass, no GPS, nothing to guide you. Do you think you can find your way out? You cannot. You might scoff at me and say, nonsense. As long as I keep walking forward, step by step with determination, I will surely make my way out. Yes, theoretically and logically speaking, you should be able to escape the desert. After all, each step you take is forward, how could you possibly fail to walk out? Unfortunately, reality does not align with theory. Despite every step being correct and taken in a forward direction, you will ultimately end up right back where you started. Note, this is not about walking around the earth in a complete circle but rather about being lost within the desert itself. Why is it that you cannot walk out of the desert? From a scientific perspective, if one of your feet is even slightly larger than the other, or if one leg is just a little longer than the other, the tiny discrepancies over millions of steps will accumulate, leading to a huge deviation in your final destination. Though you feel as if you are walking in a straight line, you are actually moving along a curve. Eventually, you will return to your starting point. Science offers a valid explanation, yet it remains a theoretical deduction and logical reasoning. It is not the true cause. The real reason lies in what I call illusory thinking. It is common knowledge that the visual presented no apparent flaws, nor did the logic seem questionable, yet the water ultimately returned to its starting point. Strange, isn't it? This is the power of illusory thinking. There is an old folk saying, "Cut down the millet bundles, and you'll stir up the wandering spirits." This refers to a peculiar phenomenon. Every year during the millet harvest, farmers gather the crops into bundles. However, for about half a month to a month after the harvesting begins, people frequently get lost when venturing out at night. Strangely, even in places they are intimately familiar with, on paths they have walked countless times, they still lose their way. Some wander in circles all night until the rooster crows or they hear human voices, only then do they suddenly snap out of their confusion and find their way home. It truly seems as if the wandering spirits have been angered and have clouded their vision. What causes this? The prevailing theory suggests that certain molecules, or scents, released into the air after the millet is harvested have a narcotic effect on the nervous system, inducing a state of illusory thinking. So, what exactly is illusory thinking? Answer: illusory thinking occurs when the nervous system is numbed by a certain substance or non-material, creating illusions and hallucinations that lead to a distorted perception of reality. This altered state of mind is what we call illusory thinking. Once someone falls into illusory thinking, an outside observer might see them as trapped in an illusion, but from their own perspective, they feel intelligent and rational. They firmly believe that every step they take is correct. Whether analyzed theoretically or deduced logically, there appears to be no issue. Yet, in the end, their conclusions are absurd and completely contrary to their original intentions. Illusory thinking is like a maze, a trap of the mind. In ancient times, some military strategists trained in Taoist arts could set up bewildering formations that induced illusory thinking. Once a person entered, their mind would become disoriented, making it nearly impossible to find a way out. Step by step, everything seems correct, but the result is wrong. Always right yet forever lost. This is illusory thinking. From a macro perspective, all of humanity exists within a grand illusion. Everyone is trapped in illusory thinking, though they are unaware of it. The first article of the chapter of Revelation is titled, "The 36 trigrams arrays that are hard to break and impossible to solve." We believe humanity is making progress, don't we? Yet, in the end, we will return to where we started, unless someone without illusory thinking leads the way. Otherwise, we will never escape the desert. Let me give you an example. Most people have probably never heard of Seth and Oren. Their entire body of work is a classic example of illusory thinking. In the 1960s, a New Age philosophy emerged in the United States, with Seth's teachings at its core. In China, this philosophy is represented by the New Age Forum. Recently, an article titled "Beyond Time and Space, the Eternal Soul," was published on the Lifechanyuan website, exemplifying this ideology. If you carefully study the works of Seth, Oren, and the New Age Forum, you will initially be struck by their profound insights and transcendent thinking. Their words seem like divine revelations rather than human thoughts. Every sentence appears to carry deep wisdom, surpassing even Einstein's theory of relativity in complexity. Readers often first feel an overwhelming sense of humility, as if they are insignificant before such grandeur. But as they delve deeper, they begin to experience a sense of intellectual superiority, as though they are enlightened beings standing above the masses. They feel as if everyone else is drunk, while they alone are sober. However, if they continue further, confusion sets in. It is like Tang Seng entering the spider cave, trapped in an endless web. Every sentence sounds logical and correct, yet there is no way out, no clear direction. They speak of transcending time and space, of the eternal soul, but after transcending, where does one go? What is the purpose of eternal existence? No matter how much one studies, they always return to the starting point. Those who are mesmerized by the illusory thinking of Seth and Oren believe they possess ultimate clarity. They are eager to step into the New Age, yet they are completely unsure of what this New Age entails. They charge forward with blind faith. If I were to shout at them, "Wake up! You're drunk," would they listen? Chairman Mao once said, "With the crow of the rooster, the world awakens." This statement was not directed at people but at the formless, intelligent non-material structures that induce illusory thinking. It meant, I have arrived. I am now in charge. You must all retreat, go back to where you came from. This land is mine now, and I will not tolerate your mischief any longer. Soon after, the Smash Superstition, Liberate Thought movement and the Sweep Away All Monsters and Demons campaign were launched. As a result, ghost possessions, spirit dances, fortune-telling, exorcisms and rituals for the dead, ritualistic ceremonies in weddings and funerals, secret societies, Taoist sects, along with prostitution, opium, and gambling, nearly disappeared from China. Indeed, with the crow of the rooster, the world awakens, just as someone lost in circles snaps back to reality at the sound of a rooster's crow. Illusory thinking harms both oneself and others. Once trapped, even 18 oxen cannot pull a person back. This is especially dangerous when intellectuals, government officials, celebrities, financial moguls, and so-called spiritual masters fall into this mindset. Their every word and action influence countless others. Illusory thinking is alluring, even dazzling. It surpasses material, image, and associative thinking because it taps into non-material energy. Even the greatest scientists struggle to refute it logically or theoretically. The solution requires wisdom far beyond ordinary intelligence. Only a higher level of consciousness can dissolve the fog of illusion and guide people back to reality. Some prophets can predict the future, yet they remain baffled by the reasoning behind their visions. Some shamans and sorcerers can exorcise evil spirits, but they have no understanding of the cause. Some astrologers can foresee major events, yet they are completely unaware of their origins. Some fortune-tellers, diviners, and graphologists may sometimes be remarkably accurate, but they are clueless about the true source of their insights. I do not intend to criticize these masters, but if they could uncover the underlying principles behind their abilities, it would be an immeasurable virtue. Illusory thinking has an undeniable allure, it can be utterly mesmerizing. There is no harm in occasionally venturing into its depths, so long as one returns in time. It is like encountering a breathtakingly beautiful woman, one who possesses infinite charm and irresistible grace. Engaging in a brief, appropriate interaction with her is not a problem. But be warned, this exquisitely alluring, delicate, and radiant beauty, dazzling like the fabled enchantresses of old, may in truth be a Bausi, a Daji, or a ghostly temptress in disguise. The moment you let your guard down and surrender yourself to her completely, you are doomed, your very life will be at stake. Every argument may seem flawless, yet the conclusion is wrong. Every step may appear correct, yet the final result is the opposite of what was intended. You may believe you are always right, but in the end, you will only return to where you began. This is the nature of illusory thinking. In such moments, ask yourself, is there a flaw in the path I am walking? If I continue this way, where will it ultimately lead me? From time to time, seek guidance from Jesus, the Buddha, Muhammad, or Laozi, and you will not go astray. Visualized thinking. Xiefeng. We have already explored material thinking, image thinking, associative thinking, and illusory thinking. It is clear that over 95% of humans live within the confines of these four types of thinking. To break free from their constraints, one must enter a higher state of thinking, and visualized thinking is one of the methods to transcend these limitations. Visualized thinking is about using consciousness to create reality. The phenomena of the vast world are numerous, strange, and dazzling, overwhelming the senses. If we dive deep into these phenomena and focus solely on them, we will forever be lost in the maze they create. To escape this maze, we must rise above it and observe these phenomena from a higher vantage point, as if looking down from above. The environment is shaped by the mind, and consciousness creates reality. This is a fact. So how do we create reality? We do it with visualized thinking. I have mentioned visualized thinking in my previous articles and provided examples. One example comes from when I was studying at Zhangjiago Geological Technical School. I sat alone by the raised railroad track, and at that moment, a clear mental image appeared in my mind. Several years later, this image materialized. When I found myself in that actual environment, I had a sense of unveiling a cosmic mystery. Later, while chatting with a friend by a swimming pool in Zimbabwe, he described scenes he had imagined years earlier, which then unfolded exactly as he had envisioned. This evidence made me even more certain that everything is created by the mind. This is one of the secrets of the universe. I also reflected on my own life and realized that coming to Zimbabwe and opening a shop in Harare were both things I had previously envisioned. Reality was strictly following the images in my mind. Pay attention, this is groundbreaking evidence and a revolutionary way of thinking. This secret is not something I wish to spread widely. I only share it with Chanyuan celestials, and only with those who believe in me and whose hearts resonate with mine. You have given up yourselves, and thus, you have gained yourselves. You wholeheartedly safeguard Xifeng, forgetting yourselves, and thus, you are able to possess yourselves. However, those like Xiaoxi, Chenyan Celestial, and Sitong, who strive to hold on to themselves, ultimately lose themselves. They will never escape the maze of illusions. From this, we can witness the truth of Jesus' words and the profound wisdom of Buddha. Only by letting go of oneself and achieving selflessness can one truly gain oneself and attain supreme enlightenment and great wisdom. Diligence is correct, while laziness is dangerous. However, even diligence requires proper methods. Being busy does not necessarily mean being diligent. One can be busy for a lifetime without achieving anything meaningful. Now, we must focus our time and energy on what truly matters. We must accomplish in a single day what ordinary people would take a year to achieve. We must complete in a few years what ordinary people would need thousands or even tens of thousands of years to finish. How do we do this? By using visualized thinking. For example, if you want to live in a luxurious villa, conventional thinking dictates that you must first earn money, then once you have enough, hire someone to design a blueprint or purchase one, buy land and materials, and hire a construction team to build according to the blueprint. This process takes a long time and may not even succeed. This is the slow approach. The smarter approach is to first calm your mind, then, in a meditative state, visualize the villa in detail. The clearer the image in your mind, the better. Once you have fixed this mental image in your consciousness, the negative universe will mobilize everything, including yourself, to help you realize this vision. The only remaining factor is time. Some wishes may take a few years, while others may take longer, but realization is inevitable. In this way, our lives will no longer be aimless, and our time will be spent on what truly matters. Now, everyone should begin practicing. Start visualizing the future of your life and life. My suggestion is to first imagine a paradise, envisioning the joy and freedom of us Chanyuan celestials living together happily. Then, imagine life in the 1,000-year world, and further, imagine life on the celestial islands continent of the Elysium world. Other desires, such as seeking fame and legacy, are too insignificant and are best left unconsidered. It is crucial to always visualize positive things and beautiful scenes, never imagine suffering, hardship, or disaster. In my article on unconventional thinking, I discussed how former Minister of Culture Xing Zhendua died in an Afghan plane crash, which he had previously imagined. Last year, I read about a human rights activist whose death played out exactly as he had described in his diary beforehand. This demonstrates that the negative universe's energy is impartial, neither kind nor cruel, it simply follows the images one envisions. If you think of good things will come, if you think of bad things will come. I have also observed that many pro-democracy activists who ended up in prison had previously written about imprisonment in their articles. They believe that a true activist must experience imprisonment, viewing it as a university, a credential, or an inevitable path. This shows that their imprisonment was something they had visualized in advance. One must never imagine negative outcomes. For example, do not visualize a plane crash before boarding a flight, do not imagine failure before undertaking a task, and do not picture tragedies befalling your loved ones. If such thoughts arise, reject them immediately and firmly say, "No," in your mind. Your thinking must be clear, and you must not send negative or chaotic signals to the negative universe. Energy is neutral, anyone can use the energy of the negative universe through thinking, just as anyone who turns on a faucet will receive water. However, if your thinking is chaotic, the negative universe will only grant you a chaotic life. Once you understand the value and mystery of visualized thinking, apply it fully. If you have enough confidence, you can move mountains, part oceans, and create universes. However, please note that all thoughts must be directed towards positive development, never towards negative outcomes. The images you visualize should benefit not only yourself but also others, all of humanity, all life, and the entire universe. Visualize harmony, nature, and beauty. Do not let ambition grow too great, as extremes will always lead to the opposite result. Do not disrupt symmetry and proportion. The principles behind visualized thinking cannot be fully explained in a short article, a deeper understanding requires knowledge of the non-material world. However, what I have explained here is sufficient for practical application. You do not need to understand a computer's internal structure and principles to use it, you only need to know how to operate it. Starting now, we must not wander aimlessly or waste time excessively learning from others' wisdom. Every article I write is enough for deep contemplation and study. Use my writings as a foundation to search for all related knowledge, examples, and wisdom, whether from Christ, Buddha, prophets, sages, ordinary people, or science. All of these will help you understand what I write. If you do not know me and have never read the Chanyuan corpus or Xiefeng corpus, you may still have doubts. But by now, you should recognize that the knowledge encompassed in my thinking is vast. My thinking is holographic, it encompasses a grand system of the universe, space-time, life, gods, Buddhas, and celestial beings. You should deepen your faith in Xiefeng. Every day, take some time to meditate and create your visualized images. Imagine the most beautiful future for yourself. Tai Chi thinking. Xiefeng. Why is life so confusing? It is because the myriad phenomena confound our thinking. The complex and multifaceted matters imprison our minds. The constant changes weaken our spirits. The daily struggles with food, clothing, shelter, and transportation bind the wings of our freedom. The diverse ideologies and viewpoints exhaust us, leaving us directionless. On top of that, the correct values and morals passed down by our ancestors stifle our imagination and constrain our exploratory spirit. As a result, we remain ignorant of the meaning and value of life. Without transcending all these phenomena and the constraints of time and space, we will never escape the labyrinth of life. There are countless religious doctrines in the world. Which one is correct? There are vast amounts of political platforms. Which one is truly right? Countless brilliant experts and scholars have expounded numerous theories. Which one is truly useful to us? Life is filled with boundless pursuits. What should we truly pursue? The kind and diligent are often marginalized, while the bold and wicked lead luxurious lives. Seekers of Tao are often neglected on the cliffs, while shallow noisy ones are favored by society. Goodness does not always receive its reward, nor does evil always meet its consequences. Hard work is sometimes washed away like flowing water. Wealth accumulated over years can be wiped out in an instant by political upheavals or natural disasters. The person we yearn for does not come near, while troubles always appear before us. Those closest in distance may not be our kindred spirits, while those far away may linger in our thoughts. Reality and ideals often diverge. Even when our minds are clear, we often feel powerless. What kind of program is this? Are we merely pieces on a chessboard? Escaping from the wolf's den only to enter the tiger's lair, casting off worldly robes only to drape oneself in a monk's cassock. When lonely, one longs for liveliness, when among crowds, one craves solitude. When single, one desires marriage, after marriage, one contemplates divorce. Going in circles endlessly, only to find that all is in vain. What, then, is the purpose of living? Fatigue and helplessness mark the trajectory of most beings. The mundane live a life of toil and frustration. Ambitious schemers stir up trouble to serve their ends. Instigating and inciting internal strife is the specialty of small-minded individuals. Obsessively splitting hairs to defend their own interests is the fanatical